everybody, this is Erin with our second episode of Moth and Rust. Today I have a really fun video planned for you. This was suggested to me by my brother Trey. So thanks Trey for this suggestion. I'm pumped to share with you guys. The category of records that I have to share with you today are my rarest records. And how I determined this is I went through my Discogs collection. I categorized them by the median price. I do have notes over here to the side, so if I keep glancing over here, it's because I'm trying to remember all of the things that I wanted to share with you. Now, I don't have the records in my hand, and that feels really weird to me, but I'm gonna have some lovely B-roll to show while I'm chit-chatting about the records that I have for you. As per the last video, I have 5 records to share for you, but I do have an honorable mention as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. My 5 rarest records. The first one I have is my honorable mention, and that is Smoking Pope's Destination Failure. Now, the album was originally released in 1997, but it was first pressed in 2018. And this record, when I looked it up, was going for $132. So this would be, I guess, my 6th rarest record, but I'm going to throw it in the honorable mention section because it's only $1 or $2 off from number 5. But I was first introduced to this record when Mike Herrera of MXPX mentioned that it was among his Desert Island albums. So that made me curious because of being an MXPX fan. I really enjoy Mike Herrera and the music that he makes, and it's really interesting to see what inspires him. So I went and listened to the album, and I was immediately blown away. I finished listening to it through streaming service, and immediately went and ordered the album. So this particular album was pressed by Side One Dummy, and it was limited to 1,000 copies. And that is the very first time this record was pressed because, it came out in the 90s, which it was pretty rare for bands to even press vinyl in the 90s. So this is, I guess, it would be categorized as pop punk, but think more Weezer than Green Day. I think this album is best listened to complete, together from start to finish, because each track kind of leads into the next, and you lose that a little bit when you listen to it on the streaming. Destination Failure is a great album from start to finish. So it was really difficult to find standout tracks for it, but I do have some. I do have standout tracks. Starstruck One, You Spoke to Me, Can't Find It, and Let's Hear It for Love. That Let's Hear It for Love is actually a re-recording from a previous. One interesting thing I found out about this band is that the lead vocalist Josh converted to Christianity after a close overdose, and he released a pop punk Christian album under the name Duvall, and it actually sounds just like the Smoking Pope. So if you're interested in listening to that, I think that's pretty cool. He also has some solo worship out music, which I haven't listened to, so I can't speak for that, but I'm sure it's great too. Number 5 is probably the strangest little record on this list. It's actually my husband's, but he gave me permission to share it with you all, and that is Jane Gregory, Do Not Go. This was pressed in 1985, and the Discogs price for it is $134. What's so interesting about this is that it was actually released on Crass Records, and if you know anything about Crass Records, they're very DIY, anarcho-punk. They have this very unique branding to their label, and if you just happen to see any band on Crass Records out in the wild, you're going to immediately know because of the branding. This album, however, does not have that branding, and it's not even punk. This is a classical album. And I was just trying to put myself, like, imagine being like a fan of Crass Records and Crass the band, and like, oh man, they're releasing a new album. Like it's this little 7-inch, and it's classical, and it doesn't even look anything like it. So I imagine that this probably, well, I was told that this did not sell well when it was released, and I'm not surprised because it doesn't really fit the Crass Records vibe. However, I think that is pretty damn punk rock. It's pretty punk rock to release something that is like totally outside of their wheelhouse and unexpected. So Jane Gregory, she is a classical vocalist, and this album was arranged by her and Penny Rambrod. So I did a little bit of research to try to figure out who exactly Jane Gregory is, and as far as I know, this is the only album that she ever released. Although, like, every information that I found about her in particular was directly correlated to this little EP. So I'm not really sure, but like, if she did anything else. So, like, if you have any tidbits of information about Jane Gregory in this like particular EP, like, send it down in the comments, because I'm super interested to know if you like more about it, because it's so strange. What a strange little EP. Number 4 is Showbread. Showbread is Show Dead. This was released in 2016, and it is listed at $150. So Showbread is my favorite band of all time. Like, there is no other band that has inspired me or has introduced me to so many people online, to be honest with you. Like, I would say that a lot of my mutuals on any of my social media accounts I found out because they posted about Showbread sometime. And so I love this band. I love the community around this band as well. So when they announced their final album, it was a no-brainer for me to buy, first of all. But also, like, it was quite devastating because, again, I love them. I love them. Like, I had to just take a few minutes and just kind of... But, this is... this version of the album is the first pressing. It is a self-release, and it was limited to 190 copies. It was repressed by Friends Club Records on like different color variants. Even though this was announced as Showbread's last album, they secretly recorded an album and released it in 2023. That is actually like a super interesting story that maybe I'll tell you about someday. So about this album in particular, Showbread is Show Dead. This marks the return of many of Showbread's previous members, and it's a really interesting meld of their early Refused-inspired punk with their more experimental sounds from their later albums, which is like, as strange as that sounds, it melds perfectly for their particular brand of chaos. Josh Porter, the vocalist Josh Porter, his website called Showbread experimental art punk, and like, honestly, I can't think of a better description of this band than that, because they don't really fit perfectly into any genre. The standout tracks for me are I Am Horrible at Processing Rejection, Why Shouldn't We Kill Ourselves, Raw Rock Theology, Life After Death After Life. Wait, I say that wrong every time. Life After Death. Okay, yeah, so that's 4 tracks on that one that really stood out to me when I listened to. Whew. Anyway, those are the 4 standout tracks for me. All right, coming in at number 3, we have one that has been in my collection for probably the longest. It's not my first bought, but out of all of these, it's been in my collection the longest. And that is Under Oath, their only Chase and Safety. This was pressed in 2004, and the price listing is at $151. So if you're familiar with Under Oath at all, then you know that this is Spencer Chamberlain's first album with the band, and he, took over vocalist after Dallas Taylor left the band, and it's a little bit of a change from their previous sound because of the vocalist change. So this particular LP is the very first pressing. It was originally pressed by Tooth and Nail Solid State Records in 4 different variant colors. Green, white, and clear were limited to 400 copies apiece, while this one, gold, was limited to 100. So it is pretty rare. I bought this on Amazon back in the day when it was set up more like eBay. Does anybody remember that? That was such a long time ago. Anyway, I originally purchased this. It was between $60 and $70. I don't quite remember. But I thought that was so much money for a record at the time. So I thought it was a steal that it was gold. It was the most limited color, and it was like much cheaper than like the other variants for some reason. I don't think the seller knew exactly what they had, which I don't mind because now it's one of my highest priced records. Okay, so this has been repressed numerous times. I think each iteration is like on different color variations, but I'm not exactly sure. But I will say a little bit of my background with this band was I was introduced to them. I think like a lot of people were with the video, It's Dangerous Business Going Out Your Front Door. I was immediately drawn into the do vocals, particularly the clean vocals. And I know that this is a very popular trend, like with metalcore at the time, was the two vocalists, the clean and the dirtier. And so I was really like drawn into Aaron Gillespie's, particularly his clean vocals, like really pulled me into the band. And listening to this album through, it reminds me of being a teenager. It reminds me of that era of like discovering new bands, constantly like being pulled in, and like I guess it was like the MySpace era too. Like it just I loved that time. It's very nostalgic for me. So going back and listening through this album was very interesting to me because it had been many years since I've listened to it. So I was very curious to see if the standout tracks for me were the same. And so my favorite songs were A Boy Brushed Red, Living in Black and White, Down, Set, Go, and I'm Content with Losing. So basically, yes, the same standout tracks for me were the same as they were back when I first listened to this. Coming in at number 2 is another one of my favorite bands of all time, and that is Thrice. This is the Alchemy Index. It was... Okay, so this pressing was released in 2017, and this is listed at $192. So interestingly enough, this is the second pressing. It is the only pressing featured in this video that is not a first pressing. This particular pressing is limited to 2,000 copies and was pressed in 2017, even though the original album came out 10 years prior. So I distinctly remember when this went on sale. It was around Thanksgiving. When I saw the announcement that it went on sale, I was constantly refreshing the web store because I wanted to make sure I got a copy. I knew it was going to sell out fast, and it did. It sold out extremely fast. That Thrice immediately announced a third pressing, which they did in like different color variations. Always make sure that there's enough merch to meet the demand, and I really, really appreciate that about them. So this is a very, very interesting concept album because it is a collection of 4 EPs, and each EP represents a different element. There's fire, water, air, and earth. So in my opinion, this is the album that showcases their skill and what they're capable of as a band. So each EP is a different genre. Alchemy Index 1 and 2 is fire and water. Fire being more post-hardcore, which they were known for at the time, and water being more like ambient electronic. Personally, I'm not really a fan of electronic music, so I definitely prefer fire over water. So when I tell you my standout tracks, like, I'm biased, okay? My standout tracks for this is either The Arsonist, Burn the Fleet, Digital Sea, and Open Water. Alchemy Index 3 and 4 is Air and Earth. Air is more, what was it called? Atmospheric rock. And it's definitely my favorite out of all of them. And Earth is more Americana folk. I definitely prefer this collection to Fire and Water. The standout tracks are Broken Lungs, Delayus, Moving Mountains, and Come All Ye Weary. Number 1, Ramshackle Glory, Live the Dream. This was pressed in 2012, and it is listed as $288. So, this is definitely everyone's favorite anarcho folk punk band, right? Wait, you don't have a favorite anarcho punk band? Come on, man. Don't you? Okay, well, if you don't, it should definitely be Ramshackle Glory, and let me tell you why. Okay, so I love Ramshackle Glory because it is punk played with acoustic guitars.
Hey, this is Editing Aaron here. I just wanted to chime in to say that I rambled a whole lot about this, but I was just trying to say that I was introduced to Planet X Records in 2013 or 2014. That in this video here, I'm not going to get into the downfall of Planet X, but if you're interested in that, Google it because it's quite the story.
Into the bands on that record, Ramshackle Glory being my favorite out of all of them. And so I was determined to get a hold of all of their albums, LPs that I could, and this being one of them. That I love to play really loud when I'm doing my house chores because it makes me feel punk rock. Now, I'm sure everybody has a band like that, and I need to know what yours are so I can check them out too. So down in the comments, tell me what your favorite punk rock band is to listen to when you're cleaning your house. This album beautifully expresses the hardships of depression, substance abuse, suicide, really dark things that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. I've read somewhere that this album was about the first year of sobriety, and I definitely see that theme throughout the entirety of this record. Standout tracks are We Are All, Compost and Training, The Heart is a Muscle, The Size of Your Fist, and basically everything else on the album, because I can't really pick out my favorite ones. Honestly, this album is a banger from start to finish. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, for watching this video, for listening to me ramble about my favorite bands. And don't forget, if you're interested in seeing more videos from me, subscribe, hit the bell, you know all the things. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time.